All right, good morning, everybody, and good morning to everyone, or afternoon, who's joining us on the live stream. And I just want to welcome all of those who are here virtually and in person. I'm Natasha Isalovich. I am the San Francisco lead for social sector outreach at Foundation Center West. And before we get started today, and before I introduce our very special guest, I just want to take a quick moment to get a sense of the room. How many of you are joining us at Foundation Center for the very first time today? A couple of you, welcome, and welcome back to all of you who are joining us again. And we surveyed the live stream audience beforehand. The majority of you guys are returning to Foundation Center, so welcome back and welcome to the new folks. So I'd like to welcome everybody here and introduce our very special guest. She probably needs no introduction, in fact. Kim Klein is a trainer, speaker, and author of many books, including the 7th edition of Fundraising for Social Change. Congratulations on this latest edition. She is a lecturer at the School of Social Welfare at the University of California, Berkeley, and she has served as a guest faculty at the Haas School of Business at UC Berkeley and Concordia University in Montreal. Go Canada. Yeah. Kim co-founded the Grassroots Fundraising Journal in 1981 and it was its publisher for 25 years. She has provided training and consultation in all 50 states, and I'm kind of jealous because I've only been to 43, and 5 Canadian provinces and 21 other countries. So please join me in welcoming Kim Klein this morning. Thank you so much. So congratulations again on the 7th edition of Fundraising for Social Change. It's a very important book in the fundraising community, in the nonprofit community. And the first, part one of the book is titled What's New, What's Hot, What's Over, and What's Not. And I'm going to borrow from that to lead into the beginning of our conversation today. Okay. So, Kim, what's new with you and what's new with Fundraising for Social Change?
Thanks. First of all, thanks everybody for being here, and I hope we'll have time also for questions, and we have some questions I know from the live stream audience. So the notion, I started this book, the 7th edition, with this idea of what's new, what's hot, what's over, what's not, because I think fundraising has changed a great deal in the almost 40 years I've been in it, and but some fundamental things haven't changed, which I know we'll get to. And sometimes I think people mistake, and also some things have changed not for the better. And I think it's important to kind of note, even though this is a very nonpartisan space, and I, of course, am nothing if not a nonpartisan person, but I did write my book when Obama was still the president. So that's a big change, what's new. And that's maybe not, for some people, so great. But the things that are really, I think are new is the whole world of online, and this is also sort of what's hot as well. And it's opened up for us, not only the technology of it, which a lot of you are probably familiar with, but it's opened up for us the opportunity to really raise money for projects, for individuals to raise money, to move outside of the nonprofit industrial complex. And as someone well inside that, I see that as really positive and also challenging. It really means that nonprofits have to figure out a slightly different way to be in the world. I think the other thing that's new that's not good is and this has been going on for a long time, this is not a new thing, but it's just exponentially getting worse, is rising income inequality and wealth inequality, and the effect that has on fundraising. So the recent study, the new numbers that just came out from Giving USA, some of you probably saw, they've just been released, $400 billion given away by foundations, corporations, and individuals. But a huge amount of that coming from a handful of people. So we have these mega gifts. And what's happening, and this has been documented now for some time, so it's sort of like how things get worse and worse, is that people, who would give away money, who may be living on, say, even a living wage, even here in San Francisco, a living wage, they're still not going to be very well to do. And if they decide to give $50, that could take them the best part of half a day to earn that. And when all they hear about is $1 million gifts, $2 million, $100 million, $600 million, and so on, I think they're just less inclined to do it. And so what we are seeing is a big a loss of people just giving. So when I was first in fundraising, 8 out of 10 adults living in America gave away money. A few years ago, it was about 7 out of 10, and it's dropped to about maybe 6.7, 6.5. And we can't afford that that loss, and that's directly related to inequality, and also it's directly related to something we'll talk about under what's not new, is the way people treat their donors.
Right. Yeah, I remember reading that in the Giving USA, and it's a huge impact because it's such a large component. Individual gifts come from individuals. What is hot at the moment? Like really hot, burning hot?
Well, burning hot. I mean, one thing is a really amazing thing that a lot of people are calling the Trump bump, which is all this money that's being given, and not just money but time, resistance to things. And I hear people sometimes say, "Oh, it's never been worse." It has been worse in this country. It has been worse many, many, many times, and. The thing that's worse about this time is that it should have been a lot better, right? And so we should have had to come down from a much higher bar. So that part is there, but I think the amount of mobilization is really quite extraordinary. That's really good. As I mentioned before, I'm very taken with online technology. I feel like when I was first in fundraising, I was all about direct mail and kind of all these grassroots strategies, and I was really anything that could reach people for cheap, get a message to them for cheap, I was in favor of. Well, now this is really, you can really get your message out for cheap. On the other hand, of course, there's a lot of people in that environment, and when you go to these Indiegogo or GoFundMe or any of these sites, you see thousands of opportunities to help people spay their cat or get their tooth pulled or whatever, and there's like $4 in their thing. So obviously it's not just about putting up your little thing and then waiting and hoping that PayPal will produce a lot of money. But I think that's really hot. And I think the conversations we're having about philanthropy, I mean, the most recent one just yesterday, some of you are probably following this brouhaha about a GuideStar that had noted that some of that, they use the Southern Poverty Law Center definition of hate groups, and they noted that in the GuideStar thing, and then all those groups and some of their friends were like, "That's not fair," they said, in a probably somewhat hateful way. And so then GuideStar took that down, and I think there's some arguments on both sides, and not appropriate to today. But whether you take one nonprofit's word for what another nonprofit is, that's a little problematic. But that you could have these groups say, "We won't give you any more money if you don't take it down," and GuideStar collapse right away. Is these are interesting. These are very interesting conversations that we should be having a lot. And the other hot thing I think is tax reform, because the private sector, foundations, corporations, individuals, even at $400 billion last year, which is a huge amount of money, that amount of money is dwarfed by even one department of the federal government. And so the idea that the private sector can take the place of the government is absurd, and it has been absurd forever and ever and ever, and we have to begin as nonprofits to start screaming and shouting and carrying on and talking about fair and just tax policy. Mm-hmm. So that's really hot.
So continuing on with the trends, what is so over?
Well, I think one thing I hope is over, although I will probably be wrong, is focusing so much time and effort on raising money in December. I do not get that. I am like, really? Did you ever hear of any of the other 11 months? And people will be like, well, everybody gives money in December. Well, that's when people ask. Do you see any relationship between when they ask and when they give? It's not like if you went to some village in the Amazon or Lapland or Norway, you would not see everybody giving money in December. This is like not a phenomenon of nature. This is a phenomenon of when we ask. And I think what happened, when I was first in fundraising, and for many years, the first 20 years I was in fundraising, there was a kind of a tacit agreement, unspoken agreement, that December was for social services. It was for hungry, homeless, all that. And everybody else was to raise money all the other times. And I think what happened really is just this series of things where people were like, yeah, I'm going to get my letter out in September. And then September came in, October, November, now I can bump up against Thanksgiving, maybe just wait till December. And then a lot of people started doing it, right? And it's true that a lot of donors give in the last week of the year, but most of those decisions have been made much earlier in the year. And that's what we're not factoring. So I would say raise money all year long, figure out what makes sense for your group and your circadian rhythms. And if it's December, that's good, but if it's not, it's not. So that is definitely over. I think the other thing that I hope is over is trying to find the perfect development director. Just thinking our problems are going to be solved if we can only hire a person with 10 years of diverse experience, who has a lot of energy and, is willing to work for not a lot of money. Or organizations, this is one I really do also hope is over, where they pay the development director more, sometimes even than the executive director. And then the pressure on that person is so profound and ridiculous, because the job of the development director is to be behind the executive director, the rest of the staff, the board, and push them out. And new study that my firm did with Compass Point showed something that we've known for a long time, that the most healthy organizations are ones where fundraising is highly distributed over everyone, even the janitor, the person who meets people at the door. Everybody knows what their job is with regard to fundraising. They have a job, and they know exactly how they fit into a larger picture. And it is not one sad schmo's job to drive up in a Brinks truck and unload bullion and stock certificates and drive away, right? Which is kind of the model. And what I hope will soon be over is the replacement is how professionalism has replaced movement building. And I am a professional, I'm not an anti-professional, but we are supposed to be building a movement for social change, that the world, our communities become better communities. We're not supposed to be building a world of professionals, highly paid professionals, or ending poverty one highly paid professional at a time. I hope that's over.
Well, what about what's not over that you maybe thought was going to be over, or just continues to be successful when it comes to fundraising?
Well, what's not over, there's nothing that I hoped would be over that's not over. Some things that are not over, the things I just said, they might not be over. I only hope they're. The things that are not over and never will be are that fundraising is about building relationships. And your donors are not ATMs. They're not crops. There's a lot of writing now about cultivation. Mm-hmm. And of course, I understand that, but I'm sorry that we picked that word, because it's so agricultural. Like, it's sort of like we water them, feed them, and then we harvest them. And you kind of really imagine going out to your donors and saying, well, time for the harvest. Geez, I've taken you out to lunch 3 times. It's just a kind of a weird relationship. And the way people talk about their donors is though the donors were some group out there, and then there's us that do the work, right? Instead of kind of thinking we're all donors. We all should be donors. We all should be workers. The donors should be invited. The donors that give money should be invited to do other things. They often won't do that, but they like that they were thought of. So really watching our frame, and not trying to really stay out of that transaction frame, which is not easy. It's easy for me to say. It's hard. It's a lot harder to do when you have even a few hundred donors, let alone thousands and thousands of donors. But there are ways to do that. And if you constantly just every morning get up and think, I'm in a relationship. These are whole people. They have concerns. They have worries. They have moments of joy in their life. They are whole people, and I need to relate to them that way. And my group is part of their wholeness. And how can I really keep that in mind? That will never be over. And then the other thing that will never be over is that the best way to raise money is to ask somebody for it in person. And all the online, all the direct mail, all the mass strategies, all the special events, the entire, really, probably 80% of the point of them is to get somebody to a place where you could actually meet them and say in person, I'm really hoping you'll help with $5,000 or $200 or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. The face-to-face, so important.
So important.
I'm also thinking about all of the other agricultural terms that we talk about with donors, like growing them.
Yeah, growing them, right.
It's like that keeps going.
Pruning them. I don't know. Actually, no one ever says that.
Maybe not. So we've mentioned it already one time that fundraising is all about relationships, and we often emphasize this in our programming with Foundation Center, and I know that it's a big part of your strategy. But can you share with the audience some of the do's and maybe some of the big do-nots that are highlighted in this edition of the book?
Yeah, in this edition and all of it, this is one part of the book that didn't really change, because it's been so, and this, everything that's in my book, everything that I've written over all these years, none of it is original with me. It's all in the public domain. I've never had one original thought around fundraising, but I just saw things that worked, or I did things that worked, or I heard from a friend that I trusted that worked, and I wrote it down. That's it. There's this huge oral tradition of fundraising, and I hope all of you will just kind of be part of capturing that, writing it down, because it really helps to build our knowledge and allow us to try new things. So the thing about relationships is to kind of think about how does any relationship start, and how does it continue, and how does it deepen? So in fundraising, the hardest thing to do is to get a person to go from 0 to 1, to make that first gift. And particularly now, as 1.6 million nonprofits in the United States, it's a lot, and plus all these other things that you can choose from, individual projects, there's a lot of competition for that first gift. So thinking very clearly, how do we get people to make the first gift, right? And once they make it, that's a very delicate, fragile place they're in at that point, because the chances of them making a second gift are very slim. That's called in fundraising your conversion rate. How many people who make one gift make a second gift? And you would be lucky if you had a 20-30% conversion rate. So most people who give one gift never make a second gift. How do you get to a 20-30% conversion rate? It's not guaranteed. Is by focusing on the next step in the relationship, which is what causes you. Like, think of a friend. If you go out for lunch with someone that you meet, and you like them, the next step is then to invite them to do something else, right? And the trick is, in a way, to invite them to do something that's not too much, right? So you go out so you just meet somebody, let's have lunch. We'll have lunch today, maybe. And then the next thing I ask her, would you go away with me for the weekend? Creepy, weird, right? So and then we do that in fundraising. Like, we gave 50, how about 5,000? Because, and sometimes it's that I found out the person could afford 5,000, but nobody goes from 50 to 5,000. It defies common sense. And just because a person can afford, say, 1,000, they don't start at 1,000. Like, where do you start? You don't start going away for the weekend. You start with just coffee, right? So I think some of the stuff we know about how to make friends, we need to apply to donors, because this is what we want to do. We're trying to be friends with them. The most important thing probably in retention, of course, is the thank you note. And I should have mentioned that, and stuff that does not change. The power of the thank you note, the good thank you note. There's a lot of crappy thank you notes, but good ones. Then, of course, so the whole entire point of getting one gift is to get a second gift. The entire point of getting a second gift is partly money, but to get a third gift. Then it's at the third gift, fourth, and so on, that you begin to kind of really have a relationship with someone who now seems to show some loyalty to your group, some affection for your group, and that person is now someone we're going to kind of think, well, what is the biggest gift they can give? So what we're looking at, the question we're kind of looking at from a strictly financial point of view is the amount, and you can kind of do this with me, you think of your favorite groups, is the amount of money you are giving to your favorite organization, think of one or two or three favorite organizations, is the amount of money you're giving to those organizations commensurate with what you can afford and how much you care about them? Is it the right amount? And I think a lot of us, we have groups we give larger amounts of money to because a friend asks us and we love our friend, but the group we don't care so much one way or the other. And then we have these groups we really love, but they don't do a very good job asking us, and so we wind up giving them 25, 50 every year after year, 10 years later, we're still there. And, and so our giving, sometimes people say, oh, your giving reflects your values. I think actually often it doesn't. I think it often reflects a kind of a random way in which these things happen. And what we as fundraisers have to do is go and basically in a very nice way put that question to people. Does your gift reflect your values and what you can afford? And if the answer is yes, then we're happy. And when the answer is no, then we want to move people up. And about 10% of your donors should say of your organization, this is my favorite group, or this is one of my top 3 giving priorities. And we're in a constant search for that 10%. And of course, then that group, and some of the people that are a little bit below them are the ones that will be most likely to make a planned gift. So, which is another thing that, of course, is very hot right now because you have all these baby boomers. I'm a boomer. There's 76 million of us. There used to be 78 million, but we died of exhaustion from fundraising. But we're all going to be dying in the next, 20 years or so. And we are the first generation to really be familiar with we built the nonprofit sector, for better or worse. It came to be under the baby boomers. And we're the first generation to really be familiar with the idea of leaving money to a charity in your will. Other people have over time, but that was never the most common conversation. For us, it's a very common conversation. So moving into that is going to be very, very important because the generation right behind us, Gen X, is tiny. And there are not enough of them to replace us. And the generation behind them, millennials, is very large, 78 million. But those young people are coming out in a very soft market, often carrying a lot of debt if they went to college, and so they also can't take their place. So there's going to have to be some backfill in a way of money in order to keep organizations going until millennials are in their 50s. And that's, 20 more years, I think, till the oldest millennial is 50, something like that.
I like to say that I'm the first millennial.
You're the first millennial?
Yeah,
okay, so when will you be 50, may I ask?
In 13 years?
13 years? Oh my gosh. So, only 13 years.
No, there we go.
There
a
we
lot
go.
sooner. Can you share any, do nots that are highlighted in the edition, things that you should absolutely avoid?
Well, I kind of alluded to some of them, the sort of transactional nature of some of these relationships, commodification. I think, few that are kind of very practical is that the decision to list all your donors, for example, in an annual report or something like that, is to really think that through, because when either to do it, to list them all, to list them in alphabetical order. If you list them by size of gift, and you have the bigger ones in bigger type and the little ones in little type, you're kind of reinforcing a message that is the background noise of our culture, which is that bigger, richer people are more important than poorer people. And I don't think any of us want to do that. We don't do it deliberately. And I see a lot of groups that will list up to they'll list 250 and up, and all the others. And so the basic message is your gift didn't even make it on the list. So I would say be very thoughtful about it. Be very thoughtful about it. And think about, what is your fundraising philosophy? If someone were to look at your group and say, what is this group? I should be able to tell a lot about your organization and your fundamental values by how you raise your money, right? And I think many groups, their fundraising is over here and their value system is over here. And they chase money, they chase donors, they agree to things that aren't right, they chase foundations. And, let's not do that anymore. The donors see through it. So, I think I would say one thing that's just really not to do is don't underestimate the sophistication of all of your donors, no matter what size gift they give. They know how they like to be treated, and they know how they are treated. And they're giving to 15, 20 other organizations, remember that. And some of those organizations are treating them properly. And so, if you have the choice between two great groups that you love, and one gives you attention and treats you like you're a whole person and you're valuable, and the other treat you like you're just a number, your attention is going to go there.
So, can you speak a little bit about how to engage new donors? How do you ask a new prospect to contribute to your cause, and is there anything that you should work on even before you, ask somebody for a drink or coffee? We're not even talking about the weekend now. But
Right.
what stages before that?
Well, I think people kind of, probably a lot of people are familiar with this, and we know it, but we don't always practice it, is the notion of the story. People buy with their heart first and then their head. And way too often we tell a short story that goes straight to the head, right? It's very cerebral. So to really figure out in your organizations, what are your stories? And to not make them long and complicated, right? And so that's one, is to do that. And the other is to really have the story, some of the story of your organization be the story of your donors, right? So for example, to use an example, the Bernie Sanders campaign, the story of the Bernie Sanders campaign was a lot about the donors, the small donors, right? I mean, he made that. It was a very smart, his team made that part of the story. I think if you look at now the organizations are really getting a lot of money, like the ACLU and Planned Parenthood. The story is partly about their donors, right? Like, you could be part of this, you could be engaged in this. And, when you really think about these giant, iconic organizations, you send in $25, you really think it makes a big difference? But no one's thinking like that. They're not thinking, here's my $25 that will make a big difference. They're thinking, I'm part of a big picture, right? And I think we don't often tell the story of the donors that much. The other thing is to really begin to think about, for those of you who have clients, not every group has clients or people they serve, but to think about how can you engage them as donors. Because remember that 7 out of 10 adults, almost 7 out of 10 adults in America give away money, including immigrants, right? And so when you have people who come to you for service, they need something. Some cross-section of them are giving away money, and if they're not giving it to you, they're giving it somewhere else. And I think a lot of times we have this we don't mean to at all, but we have this kind of almost condescending view. Well, I'm not going to ask them because they're too poor. But see, it's really up to them to say, I can't afford it. It's not up to you to say, I can't, I decided not to ask you because not only are you too poor, but you are too dumb to know that you're too poor. I mean, basically, that would be the message, right? If we don't ask, if we don't engage people. So, and then I think donors love, even very wealthy donors love the idea that there's a lot of kinds of people involved and engaged, right?
So, anxiety. Why is it so difficult to ask for money, do you think?
Oh, well, I think we all know. I mean, partly we're raised not to talk about money. Right. It's like one of the big taboos, like sex or religion or politics and so on. And I also think people are very frightened of being rejected. Mm. We all default to 7th grade when we went into the after game dance and nobody asked us to dance. I mean, And I think the thing about rejection, I want to talk about that. But so one is just kind of cultural taboos. And remember, I've traveled a lot, and I can tell you there are many countries where people talk about money very easily. Mm-hmm. This is a peculiarity of our country, a little bit of Canada, England, countries like ours, but this is our peculiar thing. This is not natural, right? It's not found in every culture, and of course it's not found in nature, as you see with your own children, who talk about money and ask for anything, anytime. I mean, so it's a learned thing, and the wonderful writer Ursula Le Guin who said, there's a lot of things she said, I never learned much from my teachers, but I learned a great deal from my unteachers, the people who said to me, you shouldn't have been taught that, and you don't need to think it anymore. And I think that's so absolutely true about money. Everything we think about money, almost everything we think about money is false. For example, if you think of the great sayings you grow up with learning about money, in my family, the biggest saying was, money doesn't buy happiness, right? Well, poverty doesn't buy anything. I mean, what is the point of that saying? It is so stupid, right? So stupid. So to kind of look at these sayings and say, what is the point of them, right? Or the idea that you can't ask somebody what their salary is, that would be really rude. I mean, think about it. Who does that benefit? Who does that benefit? It benefits employers who want to disguise a very widespread pattern of discrimination, right? So, like in Norway, for example, everyone's tax return is on the web. You can type in Sigrid Lundgren's daughter, and there will come her tax return, right? And it's all public information. So, what do you think of that? What do you think the cheating on taxes is in Norway? How high? It's pretty low, right? And also, they have a very narrow range of the bottom person to the top person. So it's kind of secret. Money is very secret, and I think we know from psychology and social work, a family is only as sick as the secrets it keeps. And that is also true of a culture. And I really believe that's true of our culture as well. So, to get over your anxiety about fundraising, I think it's pretty simple. One is to stop feeling rejected when someone turns you down. They were not thinking about you, right? You were not even in the picture. The only way you could feel rejected when someone turns you down is I go to Natasha and I say, would you help with $500 for my group? And she goes, Kim, I was just about to give $500 to your group, but then I found out you were in it. Then I would think, I have been rejected. But if she just, that's the only way. But if she just says, I can't afford it, or I have to talk to my partner, or I just gave $500, or my car has 4 new tires, that's nothing to do with me. Why am I taking it personally? It's a kind of like way that we are egomaniacs with low self-esteem. It's like lethal. Everything's about me and I'm horrible. That's ridiculous. So that's one. The second thing is that a friend of mine says, and I really agree with this, that when someone says no to me, it's someone else's yes. Right? My no is someone else's. Someone's getting that money. These people are giving away this money. So somebody says yes to me, someone else got a no. It's fine. I don't care. I'm happy for the group that got the yes. Right? And also to know that you have to ask a lot of people. If you go for a whole week at your work and nobody said no to you, it's simply a sign you have not asked enough people. That is the only meaning of it, right? So kind of just know that. We also know that people have to often be asked several times before they say yes. Like their first, especially now with so much coming at us, our first reaction to a lot of things is no. Hello, no. So people they kind of have to warm up to the idea of giving money. So oftentimes one person will ask no, second person asks no, third person yes, and you think, the third person was a really good fundraiser. No, the third person was just the third person. That's all. I think the other thing is, of course, the most important thing has been in all my books and all the writing, and everybody will tell you this, is what you believe in has to be bigger than what you're afraid of. So you don't have to like to raise money. No one likes it. I don't like fundraising. I've been in fund for 40 years. I don't get up on Saturday and go, where can I raise some money? I mean, I love causes. I love the things that money can buy, right? I love the change. And I think there's certain things that only money can do. And there's certain things that only time can do. But if you really think about what is our most precious non-renewable resource, it would be time, not money. The scarce thing is time. So you kind of say to yourself, okay, I'm anxious, so is that what I want on my tombstone? She refused to ask for money because she was so anxious. Really? She was just pathetic, right? I just, no. Because no, I put ahead, I thought about what the cause is, and I put that ahead. I put that ahead of my anxiety. So there's nothing wrong with being anxious, nothing wrong with disliking fundraising. People tell me all the time, I don't like fundraising. I think, I don't care. I don't like cleaning my bathroom, but I do it anyway. I mean, we do stuff every day we don't like. So this notion that I have to like it to be able to do it, it sets a bar that no one will ever reach. You don't like it, so admit it's fine. But, kind of, if you take the sting out of it, you just think it's just something I do, right? I don't think we stop and think, do I like tying my shoe? Do I not? We don't sit in these frameworks of like it, not like it for a lot of things in our life. So get out of that framework for this and get into the framework. You need the money. You're the one that can ask right now. Other people aren't in that position. Put on your grown-up clothes and go do it. It's like not that hard. Because again, I always think if I were to get a tattoo, I would get a tattoo on my arm that said, "Givers give." I'd put it right here, and I remember every day, givers give. The people who are giving away their money, it is being given away. It's going out there, and you're going to get it, or someone else is going to get it. And your job is just get in the way of it and say, well, as long as you're giving it away, how about my group? That's it.
Good advice. What about volunteers? Aside from all of the anxieties of stuff that we have as professional fundraisers, how can you motivate your volunteers to help your organization raise money? Is there any specific advice aside from things we've covered?
Well, one is that I think a lot of groups don't do, and then some groups do very well, is to make sure that all your volunteers are donors. So, for example, 7 out of 10 people give away money. Far more people give away money than vote. Way more. Way more people give away money than volunteer. But 99.9% of volunteers give away money. It's very unusual for in the 3 out of 10 people who don't give, they also don't vote, they don't volunteer. They're very disempowered, disengaged, disenfranchised. So your volunteers are all giving money. If they're not giving it to your group, then they're giving it somewhere else, right? So, which is their prerogative, but often they give it somewhere else because they weren't asked by your group. Once they start giving, then they start thinking about other people who could give. So the first step, of course, is always to ask them. And then to provide trainings. A lot of times, why do people not raise money? Because they don't know how, right? They don't know what are they supposed to do, or they're afraid of saying the wrong thing. And give them some materials. Ask them what they want. I've been working with a group the other day, and the volunteers have this, big social service agency, and it runs with enormous, 200 volunteers. And they have this room that is their own room, and it's horrible. It's like, so I said to the volunteers, if you were to raise money, what would you want? And so they were first a playground for the kids, or all the stuff that they're supposed to say, But finally one brave soul said, I'd like a decent room for us to meet, right? That doesn't smell like mildew and sewage, right? Oh, well, that seems kind of reasonable. So they raise the money, they paint the room, they get new furniture, and now they're like, oh, now we should do the playground, right? Because the playground's So I think some of it's kind of an engagement, And also, what do they think about the program? What do they see that could be improved? Often, the view of the volunteer is very interesting. It's like, it'll be the view of more of the people that come in, not of management, and they'll see things that can easily be fixed. So, surveys, engagement, focus groups.
I'm a little curiosity. How many people in the room volunteer? How many people in the room give money away? How many people in the room sit on a board? It's pretty much everybody had their hand up.
Yeah,
the whole entire thing. No, you guys are engaged.
This is not the 3 out of 10.
Yeah, I think there's a little skew in this. Right. But I did bring up boards. So, what is the role of the board when it comes to fundraising? It can get a little controversial. I've heard different perspectives on this topic, that you should have a hardline approach when it comes to having your board fundraise for you, or kicking money. What's your stance on that?
Well, I can have a stance and then I can have life. So I'm not in this new Jimmy Rose, Ted Pallotta camp, Nano, this new organization. I'm not in that camp at all, that you pay your board members, that everything's about pay. They're having some success, so if I have a chance to go hear them, I might see what they say, but I'm not in that camp. I'm probably more old school. Yeah, I think the board should all give money, every single person. I don't think there should be a set amount. I'm not a big fan of give-get policies. I know they work sometimes, but I feel like people say, well, some of my board members don't have any money. This is America. Nobody doesn't have any money. If you don't have any money, you're dead, right? I mean, you've died. So I think walk down the street with your eyes on the ground till you find some money. Because the difference between 0 and 1 is literally that. It's a penny. To be a donor, all I have to do is give 1 cent to be in the 100%, right? So no one doesn't have that. I also think to kind of say, well, some people have to give money and other people don't, sets a weird dynamic. I mean, if you have that dynamic and you say some people can give money, then what amount of money? And sometimes I had a woman tell me the other day, well, I give $5,000, this organization, for which that's a big gift, and the next gift down from hers is $400. So she's very more well-heeled than the others. And she said, so I don't think I should have to raise money because I give $5,000. I said, well, and everybody's like, yeah, I agree. She shouldn't have to raise money. She's giving a lot of money. It's like, oh, okay. Mm-hmm. I said, well, is $5,000 the amount? Because maybe people would like to know that, and they'll take out a loan or something to give $5,000. or what happens when your stocks drop and you can only, like one in 2009, she gave $2,800. I said, did you have to raise money that year? Well, no. I'm like, oh, it was $2,800 the cutoff? Like, what is the amount? Because people would like to know. So I'm a big fan. Everybody gives what they can. Everybody helps. The problem with most fundraising, board fundraising, is the executive director or the development director only want the boards to do one kind of fundraising, which is personal face-to-face asking. And they won't. Like, there are people you could set their hair on fire. They're still not going to do it. It's like, forget it. They would rather do anything. So you've got to think of other things for them to do, right? Thank you notes, make thank you calls. You've got to also think of it as a relationship. I see that sometimes somebody gets on the board, and in the next board meeting, they're asked to chair the major gifts committee. Really? I mean, this is not how you build a relationship. It's the same thing. You start with something that most 99% of people could easily do, sign a thank you note, and you move on and you move on. And it has to be very clear. If you're going to have a board that helps raise money, they can't just raise money, though. They have to have power. And they have to have a say. And this is, I'm not trying to insult anyone here because I don't even know any of you, but I see this with executive directors. They want the board to raise money and otherwise to keep their mouth shut. Mm-hmm. And when I see problems in boards, I would say 80% of the time the problem is the executive director. It's not the board. And because there's a certain kind of holding power, keeping power close to your chest. So in these organizations where fundraising is highly distributed, so is power. So is ideas, so is where things get generated. I mean, it's very much more flat structure. So that's boards is a big topic, yeah. And each board will be slightly different. But you do need to have a team of people, whether it's your board or not, or whether it's some board members, some other people. You do have to have a team of people to help you raise money. You cannot have 1 or 2 people raising all your money. It's not possible. Those people will get hit by a bus, and that'll be the end of it. We call that the single point of failure. Right.
So switching gears just a little bit, a few tips about fundraising for specific things within an organization. So do you have any tips for fundraising for special events and how anything in particular that came out of the book?
Well, as any of you who read my book, you know that I'm not a big fan of special events. And it's not that I don't like them. I go to them. I have fun at them. But I think they are used to raise money. Special events are not designed to raise money. If they raise money, that's an ancillary, wonderful benefit, side benefit of an event whose primary purpose was to either attract new people, to thank people, to educate people, to do something else. And if you use your events to raise money, there's enormous time-sucking sound there, So that would be my answer to the question. Is that the question is actually not right. We got to go to a different question and say, what is the purpose of this event? What are we trying to do with this event? And let's do that. And if somebody said we need to raise money, it's like an event is not the fastest way to do it. Particularly now, actually, because events, it used to be you kind of contrasted events to, say, direct mail, which also was not a very fast way to raise money. But now, you contrast an event to, say, an online thing, which will often be much faster, and much more accessible.
Mm-hmm. So what is the, I guess, special mix when it comes to fundraising for social justice in particular?
Well, one is to really lead is, this is something I don't believe is because my roots are in ministry, so I'm going to use a Bible phrase, and I hope I don't offend anyone, but the Bible says, faith is the evidence of things not seen. So when I say to you, what I'm about to say to you, I don't believe, it's not because I don't need to believe it, because I know it is true, I have seen it. And this is fundamental to social justice groups, and really to all groups. Manage to mission, and money will follow. So be very clear, what's the mission, what are their goals, what are we trying to do, what kind of money do we need to do it, who needs to give us that money, what kind of donors do we need to have, it's not just the money, what kind of donors do we need to have, how will we really build power. I see a lot of social justice groups here in the Bay Area that are 80-90% funded by foundations. And when you look at why we don't have a strong we don't have a lot of social justice, even though we have a lot of social justice organizations, I think that's why. And it's not an insult to foundations, it's that you didn't build a base of people, right? The money is one thing and the people are another thing. No, it shouldn't be that way. Mm-hmm. So that's one. So kind of really being clear on that and always leading with that and being willing to make sacrifices for that. I think that means also being very truthful with your donors, telling them what's really happening. Sometimes people say, well, these stories, let's tell them a story that will make them happy. Well, what story would that be exactly? I mean, sometimes there's no story that makes us happy. There's huge, here in the Bay Area, there's huge disparity. There's massive amounts of racism, and there's a lot of stuff. These are not happy stories, right? Let's not gild the lily, is that the expression? Let's tell people what is really true. We worked really hard on this, and we lost. Now we're pulling ourselves together again, and we're going to go out there and win again. I mean, so when I say message, I don't mean this kind of notion of message where everything is interpreted in this way to be really positive, because some things are not, and the donors, I think, see through that. Yeah. But build a broad base of donors. Invite everybody to be part of your cause, because we cannot, you get organizations getting bigger and bigger, and they have to, because it costs so much more money to be an organization now, and they want to hire more and more staff. But we can't hire our way out of our problems. You can't have enough staff. At some point, volunteers are going to have to be key to helping you with donors. And so organizations that have kind of stopped using fundraising volunteers and just hired endless major gifts officers and annual giving officers and this and that, at a certain point they're stymied, because they can't. There's only so high you can go in that, even if you're Stanford, even if you're Symphony.
Mm-hmm. You spent a little bit of time talking about, the importance of volunteers in fundraising. It's a fact. How do you find those volunteers that are, passionate about your cause?
Well, I think they reveal themselves. I think I find them with the donors. When I'm working in an organization, I often call people who've been giving money, any amount of money, I don't care if it's $5. If they've been giving money for 5 years or more, I will call them up and say, can you help us find some other people like yourselves? And what 90% of what is their answer? No, I don't think so. I hate fundraising. No, please. And you say, let me just ask you, do you know some other people that might give? Oh, well, maybe, I don't want to impose. You have to have a certain kind of patience, because they have to go through their litany that you went through, when you were first in it. But often I do then find people like, oh, well, I'd be happy to have a house party, or I just did an Indiegogo thing for this, thing. I just talked to a woman the other day who told me she raised $1,000 she went to Mexico and she found these puppies, and she was thinking 7 puppies. So she's like, I'm not going to bring these back to the United States. And so, and there were these 2 families that said, we would love to have the puppies, but we can't afford them. So she raised money to have the puppies spayed and neutered, get their shots, and a year's worth of food and gave them to these families. So they stay in. And I thought, wow, you talk about your, and she goes, and I said, well, how long did it take you? She said, oh, it took me 2 days. I just, wrote to everybody. I said, look, these puppies need to stay in Mexico. They're happier there. These families really want them. They can't afford them. We're just going to make that possible. Send your money right now. Right now. And then she said she wrote like 3 times in 2 days. I mean, she probably, I thought, okay, this person has got to be on my fundraising committee. She's kind of fearless. She knows how to tell a story. I mean, here's this money going. We don't know the puppies. Well, there was a picture, but you could find puppy picture on the internet. I mean, you don't know if any of this is actually really happening. It's like, here's my money. This is great. It was fantastic. And I think people are far more enthusiastic. I mean, I teach at Cal. I teach this one class, fundraising from individuals, and the class gets into teams, and they have to raise at least $500 during the semester for their group. And most of the time, they kind of get there, $500, $600. This year, 8 teams, they raised $16,000. They got into a complete competition with each other, and of course, I somewhat encouraged it. And every time we started class, well, where's your team? What? How could that be? Can you prove that? and it was great. And so their desire to win and their desire to have their group be the winner propelled them past any anxiety that they had. That's the other thing. Is don't give in to that anxiety. Just kind of say, we're a team. And I think also when people work together, people work as a team, they're willing to do stuff. So I don't find it that hard. I find that we don't ask volunteers nearly enough stuff. The other thing, though, is just to kind of conclude on this, those of you who are staff, I'm going to tell you 4 words that are going to save your life. Dare to be adequate. Right? Good enough is good enough. So when a volunteer says, I can send out a newsletter that and I'll send it to my friends, and you see it and look, oh my God, it has a typo. So what? Mm-hmm. I mean, people die of typos, like when the doctor, or something, pharmacist. But really, in fundraising, you just don't hear it that often.
Right. Quick question about the fundraising class at Cal. Is there a negative if they don't raise the 500? Do they lose a few?
Yeah, they lose a grade.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
So there's more motivation involved in that too.
Oh yeah. It's all about your grade.
You really have to just motivate them.
But they could have. They all got to 500 pretty fast, so they could have just rested on those laurels. Mm-hmm. And but they didn't. They got into this competition with themselves. That was very fun. Yeah. And also, I think they're looking at this. I teach in school of social welfare. They're looking at jobs. I mean, it's practical, right? And I would recommend them. I would recommend any of my students. They were really smart and creative.
Yeah. Well, we're switching gears a little bit here. I sent out a survey to some live stream folks already, and they came back with a few questions.
Okay.
So these are some surprise questions, and I know you'll be able to answer all of them.
I hope so.
The first question from the live stream is about best practices when it comes to collaboration. And this is more of like a foundation fundraising kind of question. Is it best for a new nonprofit to team up with an established nonprofit to collaborate on grant proposals?
Here's the thing about best practice. I really don't love that concept because it implies that there's a best practice. And the thing is that things are constantly shifting. So the answer to that person, live stream person, hello out there, is in general, yes, I think foundations are, when you're the foundation center, you should speak to this. But I think they kind of want to be very innovative and fund the new thing and be at the front of the pack. But at the same time, they don't want to be embarrassed, so they want to fund the new thing that is absolutely guaranteed to work. So when you're a brand new nonprofit, if you team up with a nonprofit that has a track record, I think it does. And also it says to the foundation something that I think is very important, that we have done our homework. We've done a landscape review. We see that there are other nonprofits that do similar work to ours. We have decided that our work is different enough, or our approach is different enough that it justifies being a separate nonprofit, which to me ought to be a higher bar. Right, separate nonprofit, but we're not just going to be off flailing up by ourselves. We're going to cooperate, and so that collaboration, the best practice there, I would say, is to look like you play well in the sandbox with others, and and to do that, right? And even to think about, do you need to be a new nonprofit, or could you be a program of an existing nonprofit?
Agreed. Yeah. So another question on board engagement. The person who asked is wondering about, again, this best practices thing came up again.
It's a meme, isn't it? Like, what's best practice? Best practice. How often should I go to the bathroom? What's the best?
They're wondering, well, here, let's, okay. For working with a boss who maybe doesn't get it when it comes to, and that was in quotation marks, when it comes to dealing with a lack of philanthropic culture organizationally, is there any advice, maybe not a best practice, but advice that you could give?
Well, when the head of the organization, the paid management, executive director or the CEO or whatever, does not understand why fundraising is important and so on, you really are stopped. You can't get out of the gate. So to me, the thing I would do is first sit down with that person. They may not realize the degree to which they're stopping things, and have an honest conversation. And if I were to say the one thing that I wish every organization would learn how to do is to have honest conversations, to be able to say to somebody, the thing you did or the thing you said caused this litany of consequences. But I don't think anyone gets up in the morning and thinks, how can I be a boss that no one likes and who, stops the culture of philanthropy and so on. I don't think anyone wants to be that person. So the first thing would be to follow that Quaker adage, assume good intent. Assume the person has some reason, although you might disagree, try to have a conversation. Figure out, as a development director or even a board person, what are one or two changes the person could make that would, no one's going to change like this, but what are one or two changes they could make that would allow you a little bit more freedom? Because once the person sees that your ideas work, they'll get on board. The reason why people hold things and are controlling is because they don't trust other people, right? And they may have some really good reasons. Who knows what went before, right? Mm-hmm. So that's one. But the other is, if that really doesn't work and if the person is really determined to hold all the power and make all the decisions and keep the board in the dark, I'd say get a different job. Yeah, it's not. I was talking to ED the other day, and he said to me, I treat my board like my board. First of all, big clue when someone says my board, already I'm like, okay. I treat my board like, mushrooms. You grow them in the dark, you put some manure on them, and you tell them what they want to hear. You put manure, I forget, it was this whole...
Keep them in the dark, I think?
Keep them in the dark, yeah.
When they raise their head.
Yeah, and when they raise their head, you chop them off. It's just like, whoa. Okay, you are not the person who's going to attract the biggest talent.
This last question from the survey is less about fundraising. How do I get the community to rally behind my cause? I guess maybe some strategies for just maybe when things are a little low, just getting them back up. We're all kind of in this together.
Sure,
so,
yeah. And we all default to this place. I have, but you can see even in the framing of the question, the problem. How do I get the community to rally behind my cause? Right? If it's a cause, it is not your cause. Like a cause doesn't belong to one person. A cause belongs to a lot of people. So first of all, it's like how do we manage to get everyone in the community who cares about this cause to come forward in some way, either with a donation or volunteer time or just prayers or whatever, right? How do we do that? And I think that the answer would be by invitation, by making people feel welcome that what they have to give is enough. I was at a meeting in Kentucky just last week, and with a lot of very, very elders, religious community. And so the age range is, sort of probably 50, but, up to 90. There was this woman who was 102. She was there, and she was very lucid. And the organization's making some decisions to do some things. And a bunch of people said, of the really, really much older set, said, well, what we're going to do is we're going to pray for you, and we're going to share our experience. And I know one person, and I heard somebody say, how is that going to help? And I thought, okay, even if you don't believe in the power of prayer, that's fine. That they offered to do that, I was just like, when someone offers that, you just say, thank you, that's great, that's fantastic, right? because you think, you don't know where that leads. Because as they're sitting there praying, they might think, oh, my brother Bill, he might be able to make a donation. I mean, we just don't know what is going to bubble up in people's heads, So I'd say it's all invitation. Most of us do not feel invited to be part of things. I think we can't overestimate the degree of alienation that not so much people in this room, but that ordinary people who work in big corporations and have difficult bosses and grew up in difficult families. That's a lot of people. That may even be the majority of people. And the degree of alienation that they just feel wandering around. And if somebody just says, I notice you, I call you by name, and I want you to be part of my group. This is amazing. This is a miracle, right?
That's a great segue to invite questions from the audience today. So do you have any burning questions for Kim Klein today? And we'll start with you.
I have two. So one, I agree about the personal ask. That's the most successful, but it's more and more challenging over the years, I found, to reach someone personally. Their phones, people are blocked off. If you call them, they don't answer. Emails, people often delete them. So do you have some suggestions to really get to our people?
Before you answer that, I'm just going to repeat it for the benefit of the live stream. So women in the audience asked any suggestions for how to reach people with changing technology when it may be harder to reach people.
Well, I agree. I have found that myself. Although, to tell you the truth, I found email a little bit to be a gift from God because you don't have to phone. Somebody you email and they email back. When can you talk? So in some ways, I think the technology works against us and for us. And also, I think when people do answer the phone, they've made a decision to answer the phone. Whereas, when I grew up, and you look younger than I am, but you didn't know who was calling, so you had to answer. Hello, oh no, right? But now you can see who it is. You decide to answer. I have the time. I think the phone is in some ways making a big comeback because no one phones. People don't phone anymore. They text, they email. So when the phone rings and you decide to answer it, it's like, oh, hello, I'm on the phone. How novel. So that I think it works for us and against us. But to answer your question, I'm much more focused now than ever on the relationships because I know there are certain people I can call on the phone right now, and even if they're at work and they see my name, they will pick up the phone, right? And so I want to say to them, who can you call and they see your name and they will pick up the phone, and can you open that door to me? So it's not easy. It's a slow slog, but it's like, how do you get a job? How do you make new friends in a new community? You ask somebody who you know to introduce you to somebody they know, and it just goes on from there. And if you have enough people doing it, see, that's the advantage. If you have a team of 5 or 6 people doing it, then that's that many more people that are being rounded up.
My other question, if I can ask another one, has to do with donor-advised funds. I mean, that's become, in the last decade or more, a way of screening off donors from our organizations. We don't have access. Do you have some thoughts about that?
Well, I'll just say 30 seconds of thoughts because I could really go. This is one of my pet peeves.
Right.
DAFs. Because I think there's enormous tax avoidance strategy. Tax avoidance is, of course, legal. It's perfectly legal to park this money, and it just kind of sits there. And then, you have this world of these program officers that sit in front of it, and you have to somehow please them. And so it's a big problem. And I think it comes back, actually, what I would say in short, is it comes back to some of the public policies and laws we have about philanthropy. So I think I would focus on changing those. But again, a DAF, the only way you ever got money out of a donor-advised fund is if you either knew the donor or you knew the program officer. So that part really hasn't changed. It's just there's way more of them. There's way more of them now. So I wouldn't start there. Start with who you know. The people you know will know somebody, right? And somebody eventually will know some of these people with the DAFs.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
Kind of back here. My name is Jerry Metzger from Boston House, and And I know that there's all these kind of moving cycles, crazy eights in fundraising and life, right? And one of the ones that I think we're all dealing with now is it used to be sexy versus not sexy, and now it's immediate versus long term. So I work for an organization that provides a long-term care service to people with disabilities. They have them, they live better because of us, they live because of us.
Right.
But it's not as immediate as Planned Parenthood being everywhere and people saying if you don't give to Planned Parenthood, women will no longer have health. So how do we work with individuals in that manner when, it's like we're trying to get new individuals and new people to connect to us, and yet at the same time they're all, there's something very sexy and immediate pounding at them.
So the
Yeah.
question,
On that.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I'll just repeat that. The question was, how do you, it used to, I'm so sorry. So, sexy versus not sexy, and it used to be immediacy. How do you compete with?
Well, now actually, I think what he said is now
the
it's
converse of that.
now it's immediate. Everything has to have an immediate impact versus long term. And this is the downside of what we were talking about earlier, the Trump bump. I have a client that works with people with autism, adults with autism, and they teach them different things, and they do everything. And it's kind of work that will there'll always be autism. I don't know, but anyway, in our lifetime, and people far on that spectrum are going to need help, like people with disabilities. That probably will always exist, and they'll probably always need the kind of help that Clausen House provides with a very fine program. And there is something kind of like not terribly exciting about it in a world that just rushes from one crisis to another, and where I think sometimes people feel alive if they're kind of in a crisis, right? So what I would do, if I'm in one of those situations where you're in an institution where slow and steady wins the race. Your work isn't probably going to change that much. There's not going to be great dramatic changes, right? There might be some, but is to go to the current long-time donors and say to them, how can we get this message out? When you think of giving to Clausen House, what do you think? And kind of draw that out from them. That's part of engagement. Partly to engage them more, but also, are we telling the right stories? Because I also think sometimes people want slow and steady stuff, It's interesting when you see groups that have done very well, like immigrant rights groups and stuff that are they really are in the sightlines of this administration. They've done very well, but also some groups like libraries, like places where people think we need to always have this needs to always be present. It's to really claim who you are. We are not an immediate thing. We do our work day in and day out, and it's good, solid work. And we need you to be with us day in and day out. Start monthly donor programs. Really focus on that. Really focus on IRA rollover provisions, older donors that will make gifts of stock. Right now, the market is so monumentally overvalued. Mm-hmm. It is bound to crash, okay? It just has to, okay? At least correct. So this is a good time to do gifts of highly appreciated stock. I mean, to really, focus on these bigger things from your long-term donors, and then ask each donor to bring in a donor. And I know I sound like a broken record, but I'm telling you, this is how the work gets done. It's just a slog.
Sure. Yeah.
I had a question about donors versus prospects, and I'm at this organization that I've been at for about over a year now, and what I've noticed is that they have a donor database. They kept it up for 5 years. Great. It's not as accurate as it could be, but it's more than most. But what I also noticed is that they really focused on donors versus the prospects. So if somebody gave them money, there's all this information, but they have about 2,000 prospects that may not have given money, but they keep sending them stuff every single appeal. And so I'm just wondering, because now I've been there and I've seen the year cycle, and at one point, is there even a way to say, you know what, let's stop bugging these people. Let's move on. Let's try to focus on others. Or, some people buy lists that have 2,000 names on it. So what do we do with these folks? Is it like let's revisit them, or is it like let's take?
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, somebody who's on your list, who gets your stuff year in and year out and never responds, is not a prospect. They're just a name on a list, right? So I would go through those 2,000 and see segment. Segmenting is everything in fundraising. segment them. Did they ever respond? How many of them are lapsed donors? So let's try to recapture them, because then you have some sign of interest. 2,000, you could do those 50 and 100 names at a time, run them by the board and staff. Do you know these people? You know, if nobody knows them, nobody knows how they got on the list, they never give, they never respond, I'd say let them go, yeah. And, you know, we don't have to throw them away, just put them on a little, store them in the cloud. If you get lonely, you can pull them out. So, but I think that's I think it's important, because a lot of times people say, oh, we have a mailing list of 15,000, but they have maybe, 2,000 donors. Well, 13,000 people is clogging up just the sorting and everything. The other thing to figure out, so it's cheaper if you do this online, but is to figure out what is your, what we call in fundraising, your fulfillment cost. How much does it cost to keep someone on the list? And if you send them anything in paper, that fulfillment cost is somewhere between $2 and $5 per person per year. So you have 2,000 people on that list who aren't giving, and you spend, let's say it's even pretty cheap, $2 per year per person, you're spending $4,000. And you have some person who sends you $50 that it took them half a day to earn. I don't think they thought they were sending that, so you could send a bunch of schmoes who don't show any sign of interest in your group stuff, right? It's not fair. It's not a good use of money.
I'm a development director, and I often kind of trade off whether to do things myself or to engage volunteers. And
right.
So I'll, always think, and I often go with, it's just easier to do it myself.
Right.
It's going to take time to ask the board member and follow up, etc. Are there any good rules of thumb that you have on, which activities or other things that we do in development where you should really push yourself to get volunteers engaged?
Yeah, I have a very simple rule, and this is something that every staff person can do, but particularly development directors. You go through your day, and you look at your tasks, every so often, just in some kind of scientific way, like 9 to 11 on Wednesday and 3 to 5 on Thursday or something. Kind of think to yourself, could a reasonably intelligent person with a little bit of training do this task? And if the answer is yes, then I want you to ask yourself, why am I doing it? And the two expressions, I could do it easier myself, I could do it better myself, are terminal. Because, one, they're true. It is absolutely true you can do it better yourself. I have no doubt. It's absolutely true it would be easier to do it yourself. There is no doubt about that. But you will not always do it yourself, and you can't do everything yourself. So you have to move away from that frame. That expression can no longer be in your worldview. And now it's all about, could someone else do this? Let me get them in here to do it. And one of the things that we get criticized a lot for in the nonprofits is redundancy. Oh, there's too many homeless groups, there's too much. But in corporations, there's endless redundancy. Many people know how to run the database or do this or that. And we want that. You want to be able to, and I hope nothing ever happens to you, you want to be able to, if one of your parents is ill, you want to be able to fly across country and be with them for 3 weeks and think there's a bunch of volunteers that know pretty much how to run this place while I'm gone. You want to not be missed. This is our goal, to not be missed, right? So, and we do a lot, and also, because we do a lot of things that someone with some training could do, we wind up not doing stuff that actually is much more technical or high level or even scary, like asking for really large amounts of money or setting up a planned giving program or things like that. So that would be my little secret.
I have a question about a donor that was currently working to get their second gift to us. They gave $750 last year as a first-time gift, and we've been sending them updates and student-written thank you letters and trying to get these touch points with them. And the donor's daughter is a close volunteer of ours, so her and I have spoken about her parents, and she says they're super busy, they don't want to do an in-person ask, they prefer for us to just send them something in the mail for the second ask. Mm-hmm. We were hoping to upgrade them, and I've been trained to always do an in-person ask if you want to upgrade them to a significant level, or even to like the next step, let's say 1,000 or 1,500. So I get really uncomfortable emotionally to do that via a mail, but since they've specifically asked for that, would you recommend I follow what the donor prefers?
Mm-hmm.
So the question from the audience is, if a donor asks to kind of circumvent protocols that are already in place, such as doing an in-person ask for the second ask, would you, and this is the donor asking for that, would you circumvent the protocols and go with
Yeah.
what they want to do. Yeah.
Absolutely. What the donor gets to say how they want to be treated, and you have access to this person through their daughter. So it's not, although you personally are not doing face-to-face, she is doing face-to-face. So it's happening. I also want people to kind of think a lot about when someone makes a big first gift, I would leave it at $750 for a year. Because I think then the message is it wasn't enough. Right? I think when we immediately go for an upgrade, I think we've gotten, I've often pushed groups to go for upgrade who didn't do it for years, but now I feel like I'm trying to call them back from the cliff edge. Wait! Let them give another $750. Yeah.
Okay.
The daughter is giving you information, and she is carrying information back and forth. You don't need to be that person.
Before we take another one from the room, we got a few from the live stream audience. This is a follow-up question about the fundraising events. You say you're not a fan. And what's the distinction between, you recently did a webinar about house parties. So what's the distinction between house parties and special events?
Well, house parties are a form of special event. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a big fan of house parties. And I sort of know that I'm going to get my chops busted about the special event things, but I love events. So I do want to go on record saying I love events. I think events in the whole world, when you talk to people, and I've been in a lot of countries, say, how do you raise money here? People, it's like that, what is landmark theaters or something, film is the universal language. I mean, events are the universal language of fundraising. It is the thing we have always done. The first cave person to come out of a cave and say, we've got to fix this place up for the kids. Let's have a Tyrannosaurus Rex barbecue. I mean, I'm sure that's what they thought. So there's a lot of evidence that people have had events for many, many years, for millennia. But what I'm saying is, and this is true for house parties as it would be true of a gala or any other event, be clear why you're having it. So a house party, I love house parties, first of all, because they're very easy to organize. And you have the venue is easy, the invitation list is easy. But to be very clear, do you want all new people at the house party? Are you trying to get all the people who've never given to give? Am I inviting a bunch of friends of mine who also give money to give again? Am I introducing a capital campaign? And I think even house parties can be not well done if you have some people who've given for years, some people are brand new. It's not entirely clear what the message is. Yeah. But I do think house parties are some of the most successful ones, and they're often ones that people are willing to have because they know how to do it. They've had parties at their house, they entertain, so it's not a hard thing to get to talk a person into.
A bit more low pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another question from the live stream, what advice do you have from someone who's in the startup phase with their organization and they're the sole employee of a brand new organization, and they're looking for advice to cultivate their first donors since they're raising based on a vision versus tangible?
Well, they shouldn't be the sole person. For the first people they have to go to is the board. So there's a group there, and if they won't give, then I think the vision is questionable. So I'd start with the board, and I'd start with who the board knows. I'd start with who this person knows. If it truly is a vision or a cause, a vision should be shared by other people. Mm-hmm. So who are those other people? So I think just kind of don't imagine yourself as alone. If you are truly alone in a nonprofit, then it's not a nonprofit. Then it's your own little personal hobby. Mm-hmm. A nonprofit, a 501c3 is a public charity. It belongs to the public. And what the IRS tries to determine is there some cross-section of the public that believes that this should exist? And it can be a small cross-section. You have these sort of, model railroad train societies, and that's but there's still some cross-section of the public that believes it. If that isn't the case, then it might be doing good work, or it might be way ahead of its time, or there could be a number of things, but it's not truly a public charity. So where's the public in your public charity?
Any other questions from folks in the room? Yeah.
I read an article that I think the Outfit Based in Oakland nonprofit resource center out there linked to that was a criticism of donor-centric fundraising. This idea that when we focus so much on our donors and build them up, we begin to skew our organization. I'm wondering if you might comment on that, please.
So the question was on donor-centric fundraising skewing the intent of the organization.
That was I think the article you're referring to was by Vu Lei,
Yes.
who writes nonprofit, used to write Nonprofit with Balls. He's recently changed it to Nonprofit AF.
Huh?
Not entirely a great upgrade, but whatever. But I think Vu Lei is really one of the great, he's one of the very more provocative writers in our sector, and really one of the great writers, and I really recommend that people sign up for that. And so he wrote this criticism of donor-centric fundraising, and I have to say I agreed with a lot of what he said, because I think what's happened is you have an idea, which is a good one, that we should focus more on the donors and what the donors think and what the donors want. And of course, then it gets on steroids, and then everything's about what the donors think and what the donors want. And again, the notion that the donors are over here and we're over here. And so what I would kind of say is something in the middle between Vu Lei's criticism and the sort of uber donor-centric thing that you see from more like, say, K. Sprinkle Grace or people like that. To say the donors ought to be representative of your organization. There ought to be a relationship between the people who give you money, the people who benefit from what you do, the people who agree with your vision. That should all be the same group. And when it is, then of course you'd be very centered on them, because they would be the group that would be driving the mission. So part of it is this kind of siloing thing that unfortunately happens when you have development siloed off from program, and you have the donors seen as kind of some exotic plants that have to be treated just right, or they will die, and then you will too.
Any other questions from yes?
What suggestions do you have for Bay Area nonprofits trying to access and break into the new tech wealth?
So this is a Bay Area centered question about Bay Area centered Bay Area nonprofits trying to break into that new tech wealth. Any advice?
Well, what I've seen, this isn't really my bailiwick, so I'd be kind of curious what other people think. But what I've seen works in the clients that I have, and in my own experience, is just knowing people. Somebody who works at Google, you say to them, well, where else can we go here? How do we do this? I have a client who recently got $250,000 from Google for a capital campaign, and the person who they had somebody and their volunteer, not a board member, but a volunteer who works at Google, who's not, I think, very high up, is not in management, who had a friend who had a friend. I mean, it was just one of these things, and this guy worked his connections. And I think that's really, how it is. These tech companies, I think, really want, particularly Twitter, I feel bad for them because they're sort of blamed for every single thing that's gone wrong in the Bay Area. It's like, and I don't think that's really fair. Twitter is really wanting to be philanthropic. The head of philanthropy there, his name escapes me, Carolyn something, really phenomenal. What's her last name?
Barlerin? Barlerin?
Oh, Carolyn Barlerin, yeah. Fantastic person, very accessible. You could probably get a meeting with her. I find the tech companies to be actually pretty accessible. You can often get in, you can often meet. They've become wealthy overnight. They're not used to having money. They want to do the right thing. Some do, some don't. They also vary. Some of them vary. They vary a great deal. And if you know one and one, you often know someone another. So again, a lot comes back to being really willing to work your networks.
Yeah. Everybody here knows somebody who works in tech.
Yeah.
And then they all know other,
We have the connections. It's just, there's a different culture, and a lot of the new wealth, they are new to philanthropy. It's all new to them, and a lot of them are using their wealth to invest in like social or impact investing versus traditional philanthropy. So there's just some cultural differences that I was just curious. That's very helpful. Thank you.
But I think people that are newly wealthy, they're easily influenced,
Yes.
right? And so you can influence them also. And rather than kind of draw a line between impact investing and traditional philanthropy, it's important to describe your organization as really having an impact, right? They're not looking for traditional. That word is out the door, but we can talk about ourselves in different kind of language. I think it's like anything, when you go anywhere, you're going to go to the Rotary Club and give a talk. You're going to I hope, go on their website and look at how Rotary describes itself and look at what they do. And you're going to use their language. You apply to the Hewlett Foundation, you go to their website and you look at their application guidelines. I tell my students this all the time. And you pull out the language they use to describe themselves. And when it fits, you use it to describe yourself. And when it doesn't fit, then you don't apply. I mean, it's sort of like that. But, you know, if I were going to go somewhere where everybody spoke Spanish, I would either get a translator or I would speak Spanish. I mean, we talk in the ways that people can understand us, and we do that with our clients, and we do it all the time. And so just kind of, you know, not letting yourself be intimidated by it. The other thing I would say about tech and any new wealth is here you have people that maybe grew up in regular low working class, middle class families where $50 was a lot of money, and all of a sudden in their late 20s, $50 is nothing. It's what you would spend on a drink at the, you know, in one of these uber hipster bars. But they're still not used to the idea of so I would start with it when I'm starting with donating. Start with $50 and $100, $25, an amount of money that they can imagine, because they're you know, in some ways their brains haven't caught up to the amounts of money that they have. And I see this a lot with people like, I can't believe that so and so is worth a fortune and they only gave $1,000. Like, well, that seemed like a lot of money to them. Right?
Nice. We have one more question from the live stream. Keep them coming in though. So can you comment on online fundraising strategies?
Comment on them. And
Just
can I comment on them? Yeah, I'm in favor of them.
Perhaps provide a little bit of, or, you know, talk about some of the different ones, successful ones, maybe not.
You know,
successful.
online fundraising is like all fundraising. It depends on marketing. You can have a GoFundMe, or, you know, build a. I don't know if you're wanting me to talk about specific platforms, which I'm not going to.
Oh, if you.
What?
Crowdsourcing.
Yeah, I love crowdsourcing. I think it's great. It's super grassroots, and it really, you could put in $3 and it makes a difference. I mean, it's really great. But how is a person going to know to do that? It's all about marketing. That has to get out there. I saw that my students, like, you know, they would build their site and it would all be perfect, and they have these videos they took of each other. I mean, they were very, very, and then this perfect site that could win a prize would have, you'd go on and it would be like, so far we're at 0, and the next day we're still at 0. And so then I'd be like, you've got to send this out, right? That's the secret. Online it doesn't sit by itself. It doesn't run around by itself. Mm-hmm. You have to,
field of dreams.
Right. Build it and they will come. Yeah. You will really have got to drive traffic to your site, and you've got to do it over and over a lot, and it's got to be exciting. It's got to show up, you know, on Facebook. It's got to show up in people's text messages. It's got to be, you've got to think, when I see successful GoFundMe or successful crowdsourcing that I give to, I'm like, oh my God, if I don't give, I'm going to be the last person in my circle of friends, because it's over here and it's over here and it's over there. It's amazing, right? And there's this kind of, hurry up, Kim.
I've also heard it's a really good idea to kick in that first donation on your own fundraising, so that people are like,
oh yeah, don't put up your goal is, and don't put up ridiculous goals. I saw one the other day, a goal 150,000. You could, I suppose, crowdsource 150,000, but that's ridiculous. 5,000 or 2,000, some amount. You can always increase the goal, and yes, start with something. This is no different from having a little plastic box at your event. If you have nothing in it, no one will put anything in it. If you put only coins in it to seed it, people will put in coins. So you put in $5 and dollar bills and coins, people will put that in. I mean, you have to prime the pump. This isn't an auction. In an auction, you have people people all the time who just bust my chops about this, but you have people that are planted bidders. Their entire job is to bid. And it's not because, and they'll be like, oh, that's cheating. It's not cheating. It's that we're all shy, right? You hold up a piece of art. This is a really magnificent, piece of modern art, and you think to yourself, oh, I like that. But does anyone else like it? Maybe it's really trash. I don't know. So can we start the bidding at 500? Oh, I'd buy it for 500. Oh, but no one else is doing it. Maybe it's really not good. I'm going to look really stupid. So the planted bidder starts at 500. It's to make people feel comfortable. It's polite, right? Just think about what's polite. What makes people feel comfortable? When you sit down at a table with let's say a kind of food that you don't normally eat, you watch the person who normally eats. You watch how they eat. And if they wait for you to start, you're like, well, Am I use my hands? Am I supposed to? I don't know. Can I use a fork? Is that okay? I mean, just try to think what makes people feel comfortable. What makes people feel invited? That will be fun. If you do only that, your fundraising will be much more successful.
I think we have time for one more question from the audience. Let's see, one hand over there. Yep.
So this is based on your about the startup questions, and I noticed when I was at the Pride Parade, and this always bugs me a little bit, but you know the contingent for, let's say, Glisten was maybe 50 people. The contingent for Google was 1,000 people. And they were all young. I mean, I'm old, so I think everyone looks young. But they all looked, young, and they had energy, and they were excited. And I thought, well, why aren't you with Glisten? Why isn't? How do we? So somehow or other, Google got 1,000 employees to come to the parade for something, for being excited, to be excited, to have fun, to that. And I think that somehow we're not in sync with that, with a certain segment of our population. And then so I'm wondering if there are any kind of ideas or something that we could bandy about on how to sort of connect to that. Because obviously they came because they felt like they wanted to support the community. But they weren't actually, other than being there, they weren't really supporting the community.
Well, we don't know. I don't know. We don't know all 1,000 of them and what they do. I mean, I think people probably came, I don't know, because I don't work for Google, but I think they probably came because they're proud that their corporation is so out there around LGBTQ stuff, and they like working there, and they probably have fun, and so they're willing to do it, and and when they're there, then they see Glisten and walking ahead of them or behind them, and hopefully the Glisten people talk to them, or the Gay and Lesbian History Center or whoever, and they learn more about it. I wouldn't worry about it. I mean, the Pride Parade is really a particular thing. It's right. It's to show. It's to say I'm proud of being LGBTQ, and I work at Glisten or I work at Amazon. I mean, I saw the signs for Glamazon. Of course, I am so not a fan of Amazon, but I thought, well, these people are proud. It's fine. The question to me would be seeing that 1,000 people from Google would be then coming back to your thing. Who is one of those people at Google that I know, and how can I go in there and say, wow, 1,000 of your employees went to the Pride Parade. How about helping us out here? But it's a moment, it's a moment in time. It's one thing that people did on the weekend. We don't know anything about them really. So I really caution you, because one of my favorite pastimes, I have to caution you because I do this. One of my favorite things that I do, and I have to catch myself, is I make movies about other people. So this person said this, so therefore I can write their whole memoir. You said this thing, and therefore I know exactly what you think about healthcare, and I know what you think about immigration, and I know this, and I know that, and pretty soon I'm in a movie, and we do this all the time. Like, I'm not going to I want to ask Mary Jones for $1,000, but I don't think I should, because then she might think, well, I have to give $1,000, but I don't really have it, so maybe I should ask her for $500. But then she might be insulted because $500 isn't really enough. And then, but if I ask her for $200, then she'll ask me for $200 because she knows I have $200. And you can see, you never actually need to have the conversation with Mary Jones, because basically you had both sides of it. Like, I'm going to say this, and Mary's going to say that, and I'm going to say this, and Mary's going to say that. And we just do this all the time. We're just making, like, we're so imaginative and creative, and we make up a lot of movies about the people around us. I do that a lot, and I would just say, try to watch it. Try to say, what do I know for sure, and what am I just kind of making a conclusion. Yeah.
So we are just about at time. I want to thank you so much, Kim, for joining us today. Thank you very much. Thanks for everyone who came today and who's on the live stream. Do you have any sort of final thoughts and to sum it all up?
Well, I would just say, do your work with all your heart. I mean, in the United States, some of you may have seen a while ago, there was a movie called A Day Without a Mexican. And it was a really, really powerful movie about what would happen if we really were to be as mean and awful to immigrants as some people would like. What would happen to our economy? And I would love to make a movie called A Day Without Nonprofits, because our entire country would fall apart in about 20 minutes. We are the conscience. We say the things that need to be said. We tell the truth. We work with people for whom there is no profit, there is no transaction, right? We work, and to the degree that our country has any decency at all, it's because of people like you. So go do it, take care of yourselves, and multiply.
Thank you so much, Kim.
Thank you. I do have flyers about my book if people are interested, and a copy of it up here you can take a look at. Thanks for coming. I really appreciate it.
Oh, sorry.